So welcome everybody to the Changing Perception of Sales webinar series. It's great to have you with us again. My name is Clough and I'm the MD and co-founder of This is Prime. If you don't know Prime, then we are a graduate sales recruitment and sales training company, and we're also the reigning champions of the world, well, not champions of the world, but the ISM's BESMA sales training provider of the year award winners. So you're in good hands. Our vision at Prime is to change the perception of sales. We're really passionate about bringing salespeople into the industry, and we want to make it a career of choice. And we strongly believe that by doing webinars like this, training webinars and expert webinars, by bringing successful people together, we can add further value to salespeople across the UK. So I hope you enjoy it. This is episode 6, titled The Art of Negotiation. Negotiation is a huge part of sales, and your success is going to be a lot easier if you're a strong negotiator. It's also a key factor in your progression. As the higher value of your deals, the quicker you'll meet your targets, the quicker you'll progress up that sales ladder. So this webinar is aimed at helping you master the core fundamentals of negotiation. We're going to power through the session in no more than 45 minutes, so please stay tuned from the start through to the finish. And if you would like to ask any questions, then please do so. There is a live Q&A. Put your questions in there, click send, and I will do my best as I'm hosting it to ask the questions either to myself or Nicole, either during or at the end of the session. So we're also today going to be doing a couple of live activities. So please do get involved in the chat section when we do these. We want to make this session as valuable as possible for everybody that is listening. So today I am joined by the awesome reigning #1 in the world. I'm getting a bit carried away. Nicole Plinston, who is my fellow co-founder at Prime and also the reigning ISM sales trainer of the year. So Nicole is going to be taking us through the training. Nicole, over to you.
Thank you. Every week it gets bigger and bigger, that title. I'm starting to worry. Morning, everybody. Nice to have so many people with us this morning. I'm going to kick off with the art of negotiation. So over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be taking a look at what drives negotiation and how you can improve your ability to negotiate. We'll also be sharing some quick tips and easily implementable techniques on negotiating, not discounting. So we're going to be looking at what negotiation really is, what it takes to be a great negotiator, and what the key steps to successful negotiation are. Now, obviously, in the current climate, it's unarguable that there's been a huge shift over recent weeks, and you're likely to find that in this current climate now, everyone is either going to want a discount, expect a discount, or at least ask for a discount. So we do need to be considerate of this when heading into negotiations, and we'll be addressing this later on in the webinar. But first, let's get started by taking a look at what negotiation really is. So in the dictionary, it's technically defined as a discussion aimed at reaching an agreement. In simple terms, that means negotiation is nothing more than communication with results. So pretty straightforward. We do really need to recognise that negotiation is a combination of problem solving and decision making. So great negotiators really do utilise these skills effectively. We also need to accept and recognise that every single day we are negotiating. Now, the size and value of the negotiation we're involved in, of course, varies massively, but we are still negotiating. And the fact is we're doing it all the time, we just aren't always aware of it. So we've all been negotiating since the age of 2 or 3 years old, and it pretty much starts when we're throwing tantrums to get our own way. And we've since gone through life negotiating every single day. Now, the majority of those negotiations we have are at work and at home. So whether it's with our mates about who's getting the next round in or what pub we're going to, although probably not at the moment, or whether it's our family and colleagues and who's going to put the kettle on, it's all a form of negotiating. And we also actually always negotiate with ourselves in our own heads all the time. We just don't realise it. And the reason is because we've labelled negotiation as something hard, something bad, something uncomfortable. And as a result, we've created a barrier to it, meaning we choose then to ignore the fact that life is negotiation. So it's time to change that mindset around, and negotiation, you need to recognise fact number 1, anyone can be good at it. Anyone can be a good negotiator, because remember, negotiation is nothing more than communication with results, and we can all do that. So it's said that being right isn't always the key to successful negotiation. Having the right mindset is. So we're going to take a look at some of the key things you need to do to be a great negotiator. And the first thing you have to do is get over your fear or dislike of negotiation. The reality is that it's not human nature for us to naturally embrace the unknown. People generally fear conflict and avoid arguments, which I suppose they incorrectly assume that negotiation is. But negotiation isn't or shouldn't be an argument or confrontation if it's done right. But because we have an incorrect perception, our natural impulse when it comes to negotiation is often to chicken out. We panic and then we don't attempt to negotiate at all. And then what happens is we just start discounting. Now, discounting definitely isn't negotiating. It's us losing and the prospect winning. So famously known as that lose-win or also wimp-win outcome. So the fear and dislike isn't actually coming from us being scared of the prospect. It's coming from the conflict we perceive negotiation to be. So we put our barriers up to it, we protect ourselves and we preserve our self-esteem and our ego. So it's much easier for us to claim success when we aim low. And when we aim low and we end up there, we can then convince ourselves that it's been a win-win outcome. But the reality is it's more of a wimp-win outcome because we chickened out on doing the tough stuff. So to get good at negotiation, we need to shift our mindset. Don't see it for what it isn't and start seeing it for what it is, which is communication with results. Now, we also mustn't view negotiation as a battle. We're not going to war. It's not a bargaining ground with winners and losers. The purpose of negotiation is to work with our prospect to achieve a solution that makes us better off. So a conversation that could lead to mutual gain. Never look at your prospect as the enemy. That person on the other end of the phone, opposite you in the meeting room or currently Zoom, is not the problem. They're the opposite. They're your route to getting the sale or getting the deal. So remember, negotiation isn't personal. Don't make it so. You also need to be in control of your emotions when negotiating. Now, without self-control and emotional management, negotiation really doesn't work. If you can't control your own emotions, you can't expect to influence the emotions of the prospect. So you need to always remain rational in a negotiation. Manage your emotions if you want to come out on top. The first and most basic rule is don't rush and react. Emotions speed you up, which means before you know it, you find yourself responding too quickly and without a strategy, which means you then run the risk of ruining the deal. So instead, pause and think. That allows you to collect your thoughts before addressing things and stops you from diving in. It also lowers the chances of you saying more than you actually should and digging yourself a hole that then is really hard to get back out of. Now, the really, really big one here, you really need to unearth the needs of your prospect. This is critical to the success of negotiation because knowledge is power. So the more you know, the less you have to guess. Your goal in any sales situation before you reach the negotiation part is always to extract and gather as much information as possible. So you first need to get to know your audience, your prospect, and only when you've done that can you really begin to identify their needs. Now, the key thing here is identifying what your prospect's actual need is rather than what they want. So recognize there's a big difference between needs and wants. What people want and what they actually need vary. If people find it easy to talk about what they want because it's human nature for us to get what we want. Now, needs are very different because they make us act, they make us vulnerable. So it's your goal to differentiate between the two and ensure you focus on the right thing when you reach that point of negotiation. And never assume. Now, we're often guilty of making assumptions and then just sticking with them because we perceive it's easier than negotiating. So we convince ourselves that, oh, they'll never pay the full amount or they'll always want a deal. In recruitment especially, there's a common misconception and assumption made around fees and the fact that no one pays full fees. Well, trust me, they do. Great negotiators don't acknowledge assumptions. Instead, they remain open-minded to possibilities. So there's a true saying, until you know what you're dealing with, you don't know what you're dealing with. So don't assume anything, ask questions and find out the true facts about the situation and then work on them. And most important of all, be confident. How you come across is more impactful than what you do. So don't fear the conversation, approach it with confidence. Because when you act confident, people perceive you to be confident. And when people perceive you to be confident, you feel more confident. So a lot of your confidence in the negotiations now will actually come from preparation. And we're going to take a look at this in a moment because it's critical to your sales negotiation success. Before we do though, a truly great way to give yourself the motivation and boost to start properly negotiating and stop discount is to recognize the cost to you. So how much commission do you think you lose in a year when you discount your fees and prices? Now, if you're working in sales or recruitment, then my guess is that one of the reasons you work in these industries is because of the financial gain it offers. Because let's be honest, no one works in sales and recruitment without some form of financial motivation. So keep that in mind when you next head into a sales process or a negotiation territory. It was this exact thinking that flipped the switch in my own sales performance and skill set, and it took me away from the wimp win discounting that I was doing and got me effectively negotiating. So I was early on in my career in recruitment, and my manager got me to do a task in my annual review. And at the start of the year, they said, sit down and I want you to tell me and calculate how much commission you would have earned in the previous year if you'd done every single one of your deals at full fees. So I had to sit down and calculate what commission I would have earned that previous year if I'd done every single one of my deals at full fee. I've got to be honest, it was the perfect task for me. As soon as I saw how much I was losing, I completely changed my mindset and focused on getting good at negotiation. It was like free money after all that I was missing out on. The only difference being I would just need to work that little bit harder, a little bit smarter in that sales call or sales meeting to get a better outcome. But it definitely worked and is a task that I would 100% recommend you all doing, as I can assure you, you will definitely become better at negotiation for it.
Cool. So we'd like your input at this point. So in the chat, please, can you put in there the amount that you discounted or the last time you had to discount on a recent sale or maybe a placement if you work in recruitment that you made. So just think of the discount in pounds. How much was it that it cost you for making that discount when you were negotiating? For example, could it have been £1 grand, £2 grand, £5 grand, £10 grand, whatever the value is? Please go onto the chat and just put some of the amounts in there so we can see what the cost has been over discounting so far. So please click away. Okay, well, they're starting to come in already. Emily, we've had discount of 2.5k. Kyle, 750. Is that our Kyle? Kyle, you're not allowed to discount.
Not me.
David, 5995 a product. 4,000 from Emma. £800 per deal. Mark with £2 grand. The list goes on, and I think just from the last kind of 30 seconds, you could probably put what? Well, 30-40 grand maybe just in there as it continues to go on. So yeah, 40 grand's worth of discount in 30 seconds. What's your thoughts on that, Nicole?
It's a lot of money that we're giving away. Okay, so we need to get some of that money back and fast, especially if your bosses are on. Okay, so let's look at how we can do that then. We've looked at what negotiation is, and we've just touched on what it takes to make a great negotiator. But what we're going to look at and take a look at is working through the key steps of successful negotiation. So a quick and easy model that ensures successful negotiation is achieved is three things. The first one, and one of the most important ones, is preparation. So this is an area that we are going to expand on in a moment because it's such a fundamental part of the negotiation process. To successfully negotiate, it is critical to prepare, as being prepared gives you confidence, but also leverage. The second step is development. So this is where your effective communication skills and empathy really come into play. And again, something we'll expand on shortly. Remember, knowledge is power. So we need to extract and gather as much information as we can from the prospect that's going to allow us to present our product or service as a solution that's then going to fulfill their requirements and needs. So if you can uncover and identify your prospect's primary emotion that's driving their behavior and influencing their decision making, you will achieve really great negotiation success. And the third one is agreement. So this is it. This is the time to get ourselves the deal. Now, a powerful summary on their needs, followed by a powerful and accurate solution-based pitch, means we've perfectly positioned ourselves to ask for the business. And that's where we want to be getting to. So the art of closing any deal is to stay focused until the very end. So let's break these 3 key steps into a bit more detail and look at what we need to be doing at each stage to ensure successful negotiation is achieved. Let's kick off with preparation. Don't ever fail to prepare. Preparation is so important. So you must think about some key things to include in that preparation. The first one is know your worth. Negotiation requires you to really know your worth. I can't overstate the importance and relevance of this. When you don't know or can't see your worth, you cannot correctly identify and understand your leverage, which results in you not being able to negotiate your full potential. So never ever go into negotiation without knowing this. If we don't believe we can justify what we're asking for, then we're already halfway to that win-lose outcome where they win and we lose. And nothing in negotiation is about entitlement. So you have to know your value and show your value. You've got to bring it to the table. So remember why you're there. You're not there by chance. In business, people do not give up their time to salespeople unless they believe there's something in it for them. So what was it that got their interest and attention in the first place? That's your hook. Now that's your leverage. So know it and use it. The second important part to prepare is preempting objections. So preempt any and all possible objections before they happen. So think about why prospects usually want to negotiate. It could be market conditioning. So for example, they've used your competitors and have always got discounts. Of course, they're going to expect you to do the same. Or they believe that there are a large number of suppliers in the market sector as well as you, so they could use price as a differentiator, and that's probably going to be a very big one right now. Or it could actually be triggered by more emotionally led influences such as self-esteem, status, ego. Some people just need to feel like they've won. Isn't that right, Neil? You love to win. So in all seriousness though, never overlook the fact that prospects are making purchasing decisions on behalf of their company or employer. So as such, their decision making will be influenced by the impact that that decision will have, not just on the company, but also on their status, their reputation, their position. So whilst they may see the benefits of purchasing your product or service, they may also be weighing that up against the potential losses to them if they get it wrong. So loss aversion is actually a big emotional driver for people. We often have a far greater fear of loss than motivation for gain. So be really aware of that and dig that out. And thirdly, have a clear goal. Know what it is. Think through best and worst case, then write down a specific goal that represents best case. Always aim high and give yourself the best chance of securing your best outcome. Remember, if we aim low, we get low. They win, we lose. We don't want to be losers. You have to aim high so you go in confident. And the final point I do just want to sort of include in the preparation piece, because it's so important, but we're going to come on to it a bit more later on. Negotiation doesn't mean discounting on price. There's something called trading variables. Trading variables are the things that could help you leverage a deal because they add value, yet may not be related to the actual price. So always need to know what they are. Also know what your bargaining levels are, especially if you're in sales, because that's your price range. Within your range, you may have a bargaining area or a window of opportunity to negotiate. So before going into any negotiation, you need to be clear on what this looks like, but also what your goal is. And we're going to run through some examples on this a bit further down in the webinar. But for now, that's step one covered, preparation. So we're going to move on to step two, which is development. And this is where our communication skills become paramount. So The best negotiators are the greatest communicators, and they are brilliant at displaying empathy. It's their communication skills and questioning techniques that allow them to really uncover the prospect's needs and motivations. There's no secret that communication is made up of so many different yet critical elements. So working in sales and recruitment, you will hopefully already have a great understanding of these communication influences and how powerful they are in the sales process. Now, communication, in fairness, is a whole training session on its own. So rather than go through it all on this one now, because this is more about negotiation, I'm going to give you 3 quick top tips. The first one is around words. Every single word we use has an emotional impact on the person we're speaking with. It can be subtle, it's often invisible, but it's definitely there. So you need to be really conscious of your choice of words. So 3 to be aware of in negotiation are it, you, and I. The word it is brilliant. Like, it's one of my favorites. It's known to be great at keeping things neutral. So it sounds like, it seems that, it looks as if, it feels like. It keeps things really neutral, and it's brilliant in negotiation. The word you places the attention on the prospect. So in a great way to keep them engaged or re-engage them in a conversation, but it also allows you to demonstrate that you've listened to what they've said by summarizing by saying you seem to, or you sound like. And the word I brings the attention back to you. So if you need to bring the attention back to you to show you're listening again, or show that you want to add something that you feel will be valuable, you can say, I see how, or I understand, or I'm sorry that. So similarly, when it comes to questioning, you've got to think about the keywords you're using too. And the ones I would always recommend are how, what, and why, but be super, super considerate when you use your tone and positioning around why. So words are very context driven, however, and it's ultimately about when and how words are used, as well as how they're delivered. And that's going to bring me on to my second tip, tone of voice. Tone of voice can immediately impact someone's mood and how their brain functions, both positively and negatively. So use it wisely. An interesting fact, Neil loves the facts, I'm going to throw one in there, is that our brains work 31% more effectively if we're in a good mood. And when we feel good, our guard comes down. As we definitely want our prospects' guard down when we're moving into negotiation, we should be using our tone to put them in a good mood. So tone can vary in pace, volume, and pitch. Use it wisely, especially when your words are coming into play. Remember, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it that matters most. So be really conscious of that. And my third tip on this is mirroring. And this isn't just about mirroring body language or helping to connect and build rapport with your prospect. Mirroring can actually be used in verbal communication too. And there's this amazing technique that was created by a guy called Chris Voss. The technique is to repeat the last 1 to 3 words, or select 1 to 3 words that are most important in their sentence that you heard the prospect say. So what it does, it establishes and confirms that you're listening to them. It also allows you to demonstrate empathy, and it encourages the prospect to expand on what they've said comfortably if they need to or want to. So for example, if a prospect said to me, I want payment terms extended from 30 days to 90 days, my response would be 30 to 90. And then I would pause. So the power of the pause allows them to confirm, so we're getting our yes, or it allows them to expand, to give you more time, but also ultimately to give you back control. And that's what we want when we're heading into a negotiation. So use these powers of communication. They're there for you to extract what's important to the prospects, uncover their needs and motivations through really, truly investigating and rapport building. But most important here, active listening. And there's no point asking questions if you're not going to listen to the answers. So when you've established and gathered all the facts, you're then and only then in a position to pitch your product or service as the best and perfect solution. So outside of all the pre-programmed conditioning factors and emotionally led influences that I talked about in preparation, the fact remains that the biggest reason why prospects don't want to negotiate is because you've not added enough value. They haven't 100% bought into the value that you or your product and service can add. So for your pitch to be successful, it has to be 3 things. It has to be tailored. If your pitch isn't tailored to the prospect, it will really lack impact and quickly place the leverage back to the prospect before any impending negotiation takes place. So you've got to tailor your pitch. It also has to be solution focused. You have to show the prospect that you accurately identified and understood their needs and motivations and can provide the solution that fulfills them far better than any of your competitors can. And finally, it has to demonstrate true value. So if you don't pitch the right solution, you will be massively on the back foot with little opportunity to recover and may not even get the chance to negotiate. A straight no could even be on the cards. So it's clear if there's no correlation shown between their needs and your product or service, you're going to struggle to actually negotiate. You're going to lose your value. So your presentation, your pitch has to demonstrate true value. Simply put, make sure your pitch is tailored to give the solutions needed by the prospects, which in turn will create true value. You can then stand firm when you pitch. And if you smash that pitch, then there's a chance that you won't actually have to negotiate at all. Because believe it or not, this is definitely achievable if you've nailed both the process and the pitch. You don't always have to negotiate. There's no better time than now at this part of the process to back yourself and present your fees and terms with complete and utter confidence.
Excellent. So Mark Ackers, good to have you with us. Mark has also recommended the book Never Split the Difference. So it seems like a great book for people to maybe look to get after the webinar today. Next bit of interaction in the live chat. We'd like you to think about the reason why you were discounted on price previously. The key word there being price. So in the chat, please do just put the quick blunt, be really honest with the reason why you've previously discounted or felt like you've had to discount and give a reduction on your price. So please.
Have you done it, Neil? Have you ever discounted on price?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, unfortunately. And I think it's a really good point because I think when you're starting out, and there's a lot of people on the webinar today that are in the first few years in sales, you sometimes feel that desperation to land the sale that you do decrease the value of what you're doing. So I've done that numerous times. And I think it's only through experience where I feel I've added value that I've been able to stick to my guns. So it's a really, really key point. I mean, there's loads of stuff coming in. A really good point there to beat the competition from Mark. Needed to get the deal for my target, David. Wow, we've all been there, David. Nothing like the close day of the month either, is there, for that to happen? That's one tip I'd give to everyone anyway. Only buy anything on the last day of the month. You'll be amazed at what deals you can get out there. Fear of losing the sale. I've discounted because I felt I had nothing else I could do to win the business. Fear of losing the deal. The list goes on. I think what that's telling us is it's all around just wanting to secure the deal. Probably more mindset of the thought of the risk and the fear of losing it.
Yeah. Again, yeah, to beat the competition, to hit target, the fear of losing the deal. Yeah, a lot of those are triggered by the previous stages to this point. So that's why it's so important to know the full process and not just part of the process. Okay, so if we do get to the point where we have to negotiate, then it's important, as I mentioned earlier, that negotiating doesn't necessarily mean discounting on price. So you need to start thinking about what else have you got that you can use as leverage to get the deal that isn't price related? What adds value? So what value adds are there in your product or service offering that can give you flexibility and the opportunity to negotiate away from price? And what value adds does the prospect have that could be valuable to you? So you really need to think about variables. Variables are great assets to have when negotiating. They're the things that either we can offer a prospect or request from the prospect during the negotiation. So whilst money is probably the most obvious trading variable and often the most commonly traded, it is the one you should avoid the most, as it can quickly lead you into a trap of discounting rather than negotiating, and therefore doesn't really make it the most attractive option for you, leaving you with this lose-win outcome. So your number one objective is to put price to the side of a negotiation and talk about what else would make it a good deal for both parties. So what could you offer that would be high value to the prospect but of little cost to you? or what could the prospect give you, which is of little cost to them, but high value to you. It's really important to always look at the variables. So if you're going to take an action away from today, that's what you should be looking at. What are your variables? Because there's always a way, you just need to find it. I believe that you should always attempt at least 3 variables in negotiation before ever looking at price. And I would only ever look at price if the opportunity was too good to walk away from. So if you find yourself in that situation and the overriding deciding factor is falling down to price, then my advice would be aim high, and remember, sometimes a bad deal can actually be worse than no deal. And the reason why, according to Neil, who's forced me to put this slide in, I think it's great, once you start discounting, you can't stop. Especially with the clients you've provided discounts to before. They know you've done it once, so now have a set expectation that you'll do it again and again. You're therefore going to struggle to then demand a full price further down the line. So you'll also potentially have lost your confidence in your value or your ability to negotiate, and as such will convince yourself, aim low, I might get low and then I'm actually win-win, but we know that's not true. We're actually back into that lose-win. So be really conscious of the fact that this is not the route to follow, and as Neil calls it, the Pringle problem.
I'm quite happy to take responsibility for this slide because the idea of it is to try and hit home the message that if you start to discount, and if you're early on again in your career, if you start to discount now, then that becomes normal, and that becomes normal. The next deal is discounted and the deal after that is discounted. So don't do it unless you really, really have to. So the Pringle problem, you'll remember, because once you pop, you can't stop. And my favourite flavour is cheese and onion, because it definitely goes with that.
Okay, so before we move on then to key takeaways, do you want to just run through the next bit, Neil?
A couple of questions first, actually.
Okay, cool.
That have come in just before we move on. Nicole, which of the 3 elements that you went through before around preparation and so on do you feel is the most important when pitching, if you had to pick one?
Right, our preparation, development,
yeah,
those 3. For me, preparation is everything. My team will probably say I over prepare sometimes, but I like to have all angles covered. So I think Neil would probably back me up. I'm quite good at negotiating and holding my price. I'd say it's very rare that I would move on fees because I believe in variables and adding value. So at Prime, for example, we offer a premium service, and as such, we have higher fees than many of our competitors. And our clients are often conditioned to lower fees. So immediately the conversation is, well, I'm not working at those terms. I work at these terms with your competitors. So I already know that going in. So my prep is very much around that. It's knowing that these are the objections I'm going to hear. And this is how I'm going to demonstrate why my value is higher and therefore why my price is a premium, and what added value I can give to really back that up. So in my case, my added value would be perhaps to not change my fee, but extend my rebate. So I'm backing myself and going, like, I know this is good, I know it works, so I'm not going to let you have it cheaper because it devalues what I do, but what I will do is give you something extra. So for me, preparation's everything. If you nail the preparation, you know your work, you know your value, you know your customer because you've gone in and you've done your research, and you really, really listen to what they've got to say, your pitch will be based on the things that you're great at, and as a result, it's harder to say no to you.
Cool. Charlotte has put a question in. How would you suggest that you introduce other variables first if the client goes straight in with price?
I would find out first why they want to move on price. What is it? Because there's something we may potentially missed in the pitch that they actually saw as a key need, and that may come back to earlier in the process when we were doing our discovery part, that we didn't potentially listen to the hooks, or we didn't find the right hooks. So we've got to a point where we've pitched but it hasn't hit the nail on the head. So they're diving straight in on price. We need to find out why they think what we're selling isn't as valuable as we believe it is. And then when we look at that, we can re-qualify why our products or service is the best one, but also show that because we know the value of what we offer, we're happy to increase the value, but not decrease on the price.
I'm happy to take this one. Question would be, when would you discount on price. I would call this, again, I'd use a power of three. I would try and close 3 times on a different variable personally. So for example, extending rebate in recruitment, for example, or in your product, maybe the length of the contract that you're agreeing from 12 to 24 months or whatever. I would always negotiate on anything but the price, but 2 or 3 times later, 3 times in my opinion, is when I would go in on the price if I feel that it's an opportunity that I don't want to miss out on. And the one thing I just want to add to this is when you negotiate, you need to remember, if you are going to reduce the price, the question to ask is, what are you going to give me in return? Negotiation should not be a one-way thing. So if someone wants to negotiate and you're going to give them something, what can they give you in return would be my advice. Always, always ask that question. Time for one more, Nicole, question before we move on. Would you ever ask what their budget is in the first instance?
No, never. And I know a lot of people do, but personally I wouldn't, because I think that just naturally immediately sets the expectation. So they're going, well, my budget's here, and I'm that's way below where I want to be. I haven't sold the value, so I never ask about budget, because I think what it does is set a number in your head and puts you on the back foot. Budgets aren't set 100% if the value is there. So I might have a budget to go and buy something, but then if I see something I actually like more and it meets my needs better, potentially I could find the extra money to buy it. So always think a budget might be in place as a guideline, but it's not necessarily a set thing. So I would never ask budget. I would work on the basis that I can demonstrate the value and why my product or service costs what it does.
And then final one, just to add in, I think it's really relevant. Joe said, what if you lose the deal based on not going on price? Just to kick that off, my thoughts on that are you use 3 of your variables first. And if you've added enough value, then the price shouldn't be the reason for them not going ahead in the first place. So I would go back to the preparation. I would go back to questioning to find out if I can find out further problems to match better solutions, because people will only buy your product at the full price if they see the value in doing so. So there's probably something that's been missed in the preparation. So feel free to go back, ask more questions to reclose it. Use 3 variables before you go on the price. And you know what? We've all discounted on price. If the opportunity is a good one, then like I mentioned before, I will reduce the price. However, what are you going to give me in return for doing that? That could get you exclusivity, or it could guarantee you further deals, which means actually it's a no-brainer. So maybe think of it that way.
Again, sorry, just to add to that, I think it's important. Always remember, negotiation's a conversation. It's a 2-sided thing. So you can't be the only one to be expected to give things away. Like, it's about finding the right outcome for both parties. So if you're going to drop price, you've got to think, because there's going to be some times where it's better off to walk away than actually to drop your price. You need to think to yourself, this is an amazing opportunity. They're not budging. Why are they not budging? And it could be a genuine reason why they're not. But then you've got to know, right, well, if I'm going to be prepared to do some sort of movement, what do I get in return? So my saying, and I think Neil mentioned this earlier, I always say, for me to be able to even consider that, I need to first understand what you're offering in return for that, because it has to be worthwhile. Sometimes you'll end up with a deal that actually has cost you by taking the deal, where you've been better off without it, because the time investment, the cost of the company, the cost of the product, that actually, if you knew all the impact that it had, it might actually end up being a bad deal. So you're better off with no deal at all. So always find out, if they're saying there is no movement on price, what are they going to give you in return? There has to be a negotiation. Again, otherwise you're just giving things away.
Absolutely. Negotiation is a 2-way thing. That's exactly what we're trying to say. And it doesn't have to be a discount on price when you negotiate. I think that's the problem, is we probably assume that when people want to negotiate, it's price. It doesn't have to be that way if you've created enough value. Excellent. Brilliant. So moving on. We would like to just promote our next webinar. So if you've liked what you've heard today and you found it valuable, then there's 2 things that you can do. The first thing is you can give us a shout out on LinkedIn. As you know, we're doing these webinars for free, as we really want to create further value to salespeople across the UK. So maybe give us a shout out on LinkedIn, maybe even with your key takeaways from the webinar today. That would be much appreciated. But also, if you found it useful, our webinar next week, again, it's going to be awesome. how to hire and get hired right now for episode 7. As we're starting to see a move in the market in recruitment, it's really prominent that people need to be in the prime position to get themselves hired, but also clients want to make sure they're securing the best talent for their businesses. So please join us next Thursday, 11 a.m. Check out Prime's LinkedIn later on for the link.
Okay, so just to summarize some key takeaways, I know people starting to log off now, but key things that I would suggest taking away from this webinar. Number one, work out what discounting is costing you so that you can shift your mindset. Remember, if you're in sales and recruitment, you have a level of financial motivation, so work it out. Preempt objections before they arise. So if you know what's coming, make sure you know how to manage them through your perfect pitch. And know what your variables are. You do not need to negotiate on price if you can add value in other areas. So those are some key tips we definitely recommend you taking away and implementing moving forward.
Excellent. And it's really good. We've had, again, Chris has just put in there, he doesn't work in sales in the chat, but he's a freelancer and contractor. And he's found this so beneficial, our webinar series, in many other ways. So it's helping people outside of working in sales and recruitment. That's awesome, Chris. Really appreciate the feedback. Excellent. So, folks, finally, as we wrap up, we've kept it to time, which is brilliant. Thank you, Nicole. That was absolutely awesome. Really, really beneficial. So thank you so much for the training today. And also thank you to everybody that has listened in. Gary Howard, he said, awesome again, guys. Thank you very much, Gary. We appreciate it. So come and join us next week, 11 a.m. on Thursday. Keep safe, keep well, and keep changing the perception of sales. See you, everyone.
Thanks. See you later. Bye.